Hi and welcome back. So in this video we're going to be looking at logging in our users, but in order to do that we need to look at sessions as well. Now, two concepts we're going to be using in this video are that of cookies and sessions. Now, most of you will know what a cookie is, and a cookie is simply a way to store information on a web browser. So we can send the user a cookie and then we can store in their browser some information, for example, their email address. Now, say we were storing the user's email address in a cookie, sending them to the user, and then expecting that cookie to come back to our application every time the user makes a request. So the user logs in, we store the email in the cookie, and then the user presses the profile, and we use that email that we stored in the cookie to load the user profile. That works because the user is a very honest person and does not modify the email in the cookie. Similarly, if the user was not such an honest person, we could modify the email in the cookie manually through the web browser, and then when we press profile, we would load a different profile. A profile of a different user, and then this user would be able to modify the other user's passwords, for example. So what we do instead is use sessions as well as cookies. So what we do is, instead of storing the email in the cookie and sending that cookie to the user, we store the email on the server away from the user, and then what we send the user is a unique identifier for the session. So when the user accesses their profile, they send us the unique identifier, and we use that identifier to get the user's email that is associated with that cookie. Because these identifiers are very long and complex numbers, they're not really going to be able to guess somebody else's number. So therefore, this is a much more secure method of doing this. So a session is like a cookie, but stored server-side. Sessions usually also have an expiry time. So for example, they may expire after 1 hour. Cookies usually expire after a much longer period of time. So when we're trying to log in our users, the only thing we have to do is say, now you're logged in, and store that information, the fact that they are now logged in the database. So the way I'm going to do this is say session email equals user email, and then this login method is going to be static and is going to take in a user email, and then I'm going to have to import this from flask.session. Now, I understand that it's not yet been fully explained. What am I storing here? How do I know that the user is logged in, and how does the application know that the user is logged in? So what we're going to do is login valid has already been called. So when we call login valid has already been called. So we know that the user has a valid email and password. And then what we do is simply store their email in the session. Now, next time the user accesses their profile, for example, they will send us a unique identifier in their cookie. This cookie will be able to identify this session, and this session will store their email. Because the session has the email stored, we know this is a logged in user. If the session does not have an email, it means the user has not yet logged in, because we're only storing the user email in the session when they log in. But we should also do that when they register. And why, you may say? So here we're creating the new user and we're saving it to MongoDB, so the user has now registered. What we want to do is that the user already appears logged in after they register. In order to do that, we simply put their email inside the session. Fortunately, in Flask, we don't have to work with the cookies. So Flask does the cookies for us. Whenever the user accesses our application, Flask will send them a cookie that is secure and that uniquely identifies their session. So the only thing we have to do is put their email in the session, and then Flask will already know that the user's cookie matches this session. Okay, so remember this only happens when they register or when they log in. If we want them to log out, the only thing we have to do is a session email equals none. And then this user is not logged in now. So fairly simple way of doing it. You need to understand a bit about sessions and cookies, but not a lot really. Let's work on the JSON method, because this method is going to be fairly simple. The only thing we have to do in this JSON method is return the email, the underscore ID, and we have to think whether we want to return the password or not. So say, for example, the user accesses their profile. Are we going to use this JSON method to get the details that we're going to display in their profile? Because if we are, then we do not want to send the password as well. Sending passwords over a network is never safe. So we want to think about, are we going to be using this method in communications between the user and the application, or only inside the application? Because if it's only inside the application, then we can send the password through. After all, if it's not going through the network, then we're fine. And indeed, because we use this method when saving to MongoDB, as we will in a moment, then it might be worth putting it there. However, you must remember that this is not safe to send over a network. The passwords, as of now, are not encrypted, which means we're storing passwords in plain text in the database, which is also very unsafe, and we will work on that in the next few videos as well. Okay, so we're saving to MongoDB, and the way we're doing that is simply database.insert, not that one, sorry, insert, and then we're using the users, and we are storing self.json. Okay, so that's how we would save to MongoDB, and now we've got everything working except the getBlogs method. So we're going to work on that in the very next video. I'll see you there.